So here we go, week 3 of Mindfulness Building the Habit of Presence. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. I hope you had a good week mindfully, practicing some of the practices from last week. This week, we are going to focus on probably the heart of all this, stress, responding versus reacting, in dealing with thoughts, emotions, and sensations. And next week is kind of a continuation of that. Get more into the emotions next week. This week is more about the thoughts, and they're all connected anyway. So, but that's kind of the 3 buckets of awareness that we can really notice: thoughts, emotions, and sensations in the body. So let me just start with a breathing space. This is called the 3-minute breathing space. This is actually going to be one of our practices. And there is a link to it if you want to listen to it again, but it's a fairly simple practice. And it's something that you should practice a few times throughout the week, but also definitely try it in response to a stressor, because I think that's when it could be most useful, or when you're feeling a little overwhelmed or scattered, that kind of a thing. So here it is. Let's do the 3-minute breathing space. So take a moment to sit comfortably. You can do this on the go. So if you're moving about, if you're, like walking or headed to a meeting or whatever, you can do this sort of in the moment. That's how it's meant to be done. But for now, just sitting quietly. And the first step is simply to turn inwards and kind of do a weather check. What's going on inside, internally? How am I doing right now? Kind of asking yourself that question. How am I right now? When you ask that question, noticing what thoughts come up. What thoughts are here swirling around? Maybe there's a lot of thoughts, maybe there's jumbled thoughts, maybe they're coming and going rapidly. Just notice thoughts in the mind right now. You don't have to do anything with them. In fact, I want you to just observe them. Try not to get caught up in them. Try not to worry about them. Try not to do anything about them. Just notice thoughts come and go like mental events. Now, the next thing we become aware of is what the feeling is like. What emotions are present? What do you notice with your feeling state? What's your general mood? And if you can be specific, that's fine. But we don't often tune into this. So just really kind of noticing what's going on in our emotional state. And in the same way we just did with thoughts, try not to get caught up in them. Try to just notice them. You don't have to fix them or do anything about them or respond to them. Just be aware of your feelings. And then the third area is tuning into the body, noticing any body sensations, in particular, anything that stands out to you. Maybe there's some tension or tightness, or maybe a feeling of relaxation and calm, whatever it is on that spectrum. Just noticing, scanning quickly through the body, seeing what you notice. And again, don't have to do anything about it. Just be aware of what is present in the body. Then once we've done this, we move to our breath and take a few mindful breaths. You can maybe make them deeper and longer so that you can really feel the breath going in and out of the body. Full in-breath, feel that fresh air coming in, filling. Long, slow out-breath, feeling that sense of relaxing and settling. And if your mind gets pulled away, if those thoughts pop up again or emotion surfaces, that's okay. But just let go of that and bring your attention back to the next breath so that we use the breath as an anchor. Feel the breath in and out. You can, if you wish, you can also use the body to anchor yourself, so you can feel your body sort of sitting in the chair, feet on the floor, torso sitting, feel the weight of your body. That can also serve as a good anchor, a good stabilizer, a way to center ourselves. And then the final step is to open up our awareness, kind of zoom out. Feel the whole body sitting here. Feel the whole body breathing. Be aware of the body as a whole. Maybe even extending around the body, where you're sitting, the room you're in. If there's people around you, or just kind of opening up your awareness and keeping that awareness open, receptive. And then we notice what this is like, and then move on. And that's a 3-minute breathing space. So you can open your eyes if they've been closed. And that's just a quick way. I might have extended that a little bit, but you can do it. And I'll show you actually a shorter version of that in a few minutes. But great way to check in with yourself, and a great way to do that in response to a stressor, or again, just in the beginning, just do it periodically so that you can get used to it. Real simple. Internal weather check, thoughts, feelings, body sensations, breathing, mindful breathing, coming back to the breath when distracted, opening up our awareness, feel the body breathing as a whole, and then move on. And that's kind of it. Great way to kind of bring ourselves into the present so that we don't get caught up into everything that's going on. And this is one of the ways that we can interrupt the stress cycle. And so give you a few things that we can do for stress to help us to counteract stress in a sense. But before we move on with the rest, how's it going? Want to just open it up? You can either use the chat or feel free to speak up. How is your practice going? How was last week? Your formal practice last week was to try the body scan and the mindful movement. So you could alternate those. Anybody get a chance to try those a few times? And if so, how did it work for you? Curious about your experience. Something in the chat here, practicing as much as I can, but all going good. Okay, so glad to hear that. So specifically, how is the body scan practice for you as compared to the first week where we did the breathing, sitting and focusing on the breath? It's a little different, you know. The body is a great way to get out of the head and into the body. Same with mindful movement, to really feel ourselves as we move through. And, you know, we don't always feel like sitting, closing our eyes and being still and meditating. Movement, walking, mindful walking, we talked about, stretching. Those are all great ways to feel ourselves, right? Feel the body, make that connection between what's going on in the head, how it translates into the body, and also keeping in mind the emotional state. So yeah, so good. Body scan, make me realize how I hold my stress. And key here, enables me to relieve it a little. So that's good. So that's the point. You're moving in the right direction. Notice it. Sometimes we're not even aware that, gee, like my shoulders and my neck are really tense. How come? or I'm feeling this unsettled feeling in my stomach, or whatever it is, so it's noticing that and connecting the dots. 10 mindful movements was challenging. I'm glad you tried that, Jen. It is challenging. It's very slow, right? Very deliberate, almost too slow, right? You probably got a little restless and come on, let's move it on. We're not used to being that slow and deliberate. So that's kind of the point, is even noticing when we do slow down and we pay attention to movement or whatever it is, what comes up, like the impatience. Remember, we talked about trying to be patient, trying to accept things as we are. So I remember the first few times I did that practice, it was like, wow, feels like it's taking forever. And it does. It takes, it's 14 minutes of pretty slow, deliberate movements. But I have to tell you, whether it's that or I like to do this slow movement in the morning now with some stretching, but it's a slow, kind of a Tai Chi type of thing. And it's a great way to center with the breath and notice the thoughts, but it's really more about the movement. Here's another comment. I feel the body scan will continue to improve over time. It helps limit distraction. Yeah, that's a good point. And so, I'm not sure what you meant by improve over time, but remember, it's not like we have to be like really good at this stuff. We're doing it to experience the moment and to notice what comes up. So, but yeah, I think I know what you mean. We will kind of, we'll see the benefits of it, and that will help over time, the more we do it. And yes, the more you practice it, that's the whole point, the better at it you'll get. And it might help you relax, and it might help you feel into what's going on in the body in the moment. I was able to try movement meditation that Roberta had led great at Greenwich last week, and it was very interesting and relaxing. Super. So I know Roberta, who's in the class here, does this at Greenwich. So that's whatever way you can get it. That's a great way, especially if you have a group of people. That's why I wanted you to buddy up, so you have somebody to do this stuff with. And Roberta says, I love doing the body scan at bedtime. Yeah, good point. Great time to do it. I fall asleep usually before it's over. I meditate every morning and do mindful eating. Yeah, remember, that's another way to bring mindfulness to the body. Also, my mindful movement to music. And yep, great point. Lastly, I walked. So you're doing a lot of good movement stuff, Roberta. Excellent. Walked with my mindful buddy. We shared how we were doing. We needed to remind ourselves to keep up. Yeah, and that's the whole point. Remind ourselves and support ourselves and reinforce it with each other. And hopefully that's the class is helping with this too. But remember, this class is going to go pretty quick. We're already in the third week. After 6 weeks, you got to keep it going on your own, or with your mindful buddy, or with people at work, or with, we do monthly webinars, we do telephone meditations, so pick and choose some of those as well. How are you going to do it? That's the whole point of this 6-week class, is how are you going to continue it on your own? Very good comments. Thank you. So other things I wanted to check in with, there's the record form. You don't have to do that, but it can be very helpful to use the record form to log when you do the practices, and maybe just jot down a note of what it was like, so that you do notice it and kind of like ingrain it a little bit. So hopefully you're using that just to remind you that that can be a good tool to reinforce the habit, but to also gain some insight into what the different practices, how they impact you. And then the MLife app, hopefully you're finding that useful. And then other forms, what other forms where you're getting the meditations. Hopefully you've got enough places to get them from, but I think the MLife app is a good place to do that, so that it's always there right on your phone, or some other apps. They might prefer another app, but I want you to give this one a try. So any feedback you have for me about those, I'd appreciate it. Let me know. So moving on, I've got this up here. I went one too far. Let me go back one. So we're talking about interrupting the stress cycle. So the first part of that is noticing when we are stressed, and when we feel stress, how do we feel it? Is it in the mind? Is it in the body? Is it in our emotional state, or all three? How do we know that we're stressed? That's the first step, right? And then bringing on the relaxation response intentionally. I'll give you some thoughts about that. The 3-minute breathing space is one of them, and learning to pause and respond. So the whole idea of this is, instead of automatically reacting because of those conditioned patterns that we have, that we've developed over our lives, we're learning to, instead of do that, we're learning to step back and to kind of pause and think, oh, okay, I'm feeling this, I'm thinking that, maybe I could respond in this way instead of my automatic reaction. So that's the point there. And then that leads us to, which we'll talk more about in the later half of today's practice, we are not troubled by things, but by the opinions we have about things. And it's that whole idea that noticing the opinions, noticing the commentary, noticing the inner critic, noticing the judgments that we're having about all this stuff. Whoops, went backwards. So that's where we can really have a big impact, by noticing those. And that's the whole non-judgmental piece of mindfulness. All right, so the next slide, this is another slide on the more tips. I gave you something that's similar to this that had like 5 essential tips, but this is a longer list that Tara Brach has. And so the first few we've kind of talked about, but coming down to number 6, keep coming back. You know, that's why we do that practice in the sitting or in any meditation. When we get distracted and our mind gets, and our attention gets pulled away, we just come back to an anchor. So having a good anchor to come back to. When we practice that in meditation, that helps us do that in real life. So that when we're triggered in the middle of a meeting or on a phone call or a Zoom or a Teams meeting or whatever it is, and you find yourself like all of a sudden, I kind of get that clenching, you can learn to come back to the breath, take that little pause, and then choose how you want to respond. That's the whole point. The next one, deepen mindful presence with 2 key questions. So when it comes to stress and difficulties, what we're doing is we are paying attention to it, which you might think is counterintuitive. But when we pay attention to difficult thoughts and emotions, why do we do that? Well, instead of running away from it or trying to push it away or ignore it or do something to kind of cover it up by getting busy or whatever it is, we take a look at it. We let it be. We ask ourselves, and these are really 2 good questions. What is happening inside me right now? And can I be with this? And I'm going to show you a practice that really supports this in a moment. And of course, the final point, remember kindness. Remember, this is all about being kind to ourselves. So we don't want to give ourselves a hard time. It's not like we have to achieve here. It's not like we're striving for a good grade. Be kind to yourself. Even if you're missing, it's finding it hard to do this on a regular basis. Again, start fresh, be kind to yourself. Do anything that comes into mind, whether it's breathing or a body or releasing tension. Attitude, remember that number 2 point. Attitude is really important here. And the attitudes of kindness, patience, acceptance are all really important, especially in the beginning. Now, you probably also do all kinds of things already that are relaxing. And so keep doing those. We know that deep breathing can be really helpful, using the diaphragm so that we breathe all the way down, feel it to the belly, a deep belly breath. And breathing out on the exhale, letting go and releasing, long, slow exhale is really helpful. So try that for a few cycles of breathing. That's something you can do in the moment. A lot of people do this, I think, and see then how it changes your relationship to that stressor. Again, the yoga, stretching, Tai Chi, the mindful movements, any of those really, really helpful. Progressive muscle relaxation can be very relaxing. If you try this, that's progressively tensing and then relaxing different muscle groups. I have a handout on this if anybody wants it, but it's really, you just kind of go through different muscle groups, sort of like a body scan, but instead of just going through and focusing on different parts of the body, you're actually tensing the muscle group for about 5 seconds and releasing, and really feel the relaxation that brings. And when you go through the whole body, it can be very relaxing. Guided imagery is another way to kind of imagine yourself in a safe, peaceful place, putting yourself in the place. But what are some other ways? I'm just curious. I bet you have some ways. Sometimes we use our phone to maybe look at social media or photos or a text from a friend or family member. What are ways that you find helpful to stop and step back from stress, or give yourself and your mind a break? And if you want to, again, use the chat feature, I'd be curious to see what you're already trying. Simple little quick things that you can do on the go during the day, especially if you're having a busy, stressful day. So yeah, go outside and look at nature. And by the way, you don't even have to go outside, although it's been really pleasant weather. Even just looking at nature can be a really, really helpful. A lot of people are saying the same thing, going outside, being in touch with nature, focusing on the sky. Love it. Rain helps, super. So all those things, keep doing those, obviously. If they're working for you, continue doing them. Repeating a mantra or saying, good. We talked about that, that you can use a mantra. And I don't teach mantra meditation, but that doesn't mean, it can be very helpful. A mantra can be as simple as picking any word to focus on. Sometimes when I do something with words, I'll focus on let go, and relax, something on the in-breath, something on the out-breath. So whatever works for you, that's a good example of that. So good. So keep those up as well, and maybe you'll find something else that can really help you. So this is the stop technique. This is the 1 minute breathing space, in a sense, like the 3 minute, but it's, and this is something that you can do for an informal practice throughout the week. Stop and take stock when you're feeling stressed. So that's the whole key, noticing it and then stopping. Taking stock, bringing yourself into the present moment. What's going on right now? Take a mindful breath or two, feel the breath. It's going to become, second nature, really tuning in to the sensations of the breath, using the breath as an anchor. And then the third is the O, is open and observe. What's my experience? Again, head, heart, and body, thoughts, feelings, body sensations. What's going on in there? And then expand your field of awareness around and beyond your breathing. And then the P is proceed with the new awareness or new possibilities with that space. And that's really what it comes down to. Creating even a moment of space can be all that's really needed. So the stop is something that you can try. And I want you to try as an informal practice. And here's another one. This is rain. And this is related to what I was talking about before, is asking yourself the question, what's going on inside me right now? And can I be with this? This is Tara Brach, again, teaches this. It's originally from another teacher, but a lot of people use this. And I think this can be really well used, especially if there's kind of an emotional tangle, where you're feeling like a little bit, there's like a lot going on emotionally, or there's like, a bit of like a situation that's triggering you and you're not even sure why maybe, but you're feeling some more intensity. Try this exercise. And what it comes down to is, in fact, let's try this right now. Maybe think of something that is a little bit of an emotional tangle for yourself. Something doesn't have to be big. Could be something going on in the family or at work or financial situation or whatever it might be. Just try to think of something that's a little bit troubling and stressful. Get in touch with it. And the R is to simply recognize what is happening. Just really taking note. What's going on inside me? What's happening? I'm angry, I'm anxious, got a lot of thoughts swirling around. What is it? Just noticing it. You don't even have to label it, but just be aware of it. The A is really important. Allow life to be just as it is, because usually this is the part where we get derailed. This is the part where we usually try to push it away. So allow it to be there. This is the part that takes some practice. Allow yourself to be with it, to not run away from it, to sit with it. It might help to breathe with it, like in the breathing space or the stop. So continue breathing. And then the I is to investigate, not to analyze, not to figure out, not to problem solve, not to figure out what needs to be done to fix this thing, but to investigate what's going on inside. So take a moment to investigate, turn inward, and just notice a little bit more what thoughts you're having. This can help lead to a little bit of insight, perhaps. Maybe what are some of the automatic thoughts that pop up, or what are some of the sticky thoughts that we have? We all have repetitive thought patterns. What are some of the emotional reactions that you notice? How does that affect our body? So check it out, investigate with kindness. If you find yourself saying to yourself, I shouldn't be feeling this way, or I should be able to handle this, notice that and just give yourself some kindness. Just say to yourself, okay, doing the best I can here. Give yourself some encouragement like you would a good friend. And, support yourself. Give yourself some care and kindness. And the N is the final step. The N, all this leads to natural awareness. In other words, a more clear awareness, not being cluttered by all the rain that's going on, by the storminess. It also leads us to non-identification, which means we can realize that this situation and how I'm responding to it doesn't define who I am. It's just a situation. It helps us not identify so closely with it. Helps us, sometimes we get linked and tangled with the intensity of it, with the turbulence that's going on, with the drama. And this helps us disengage and not identify with it, step back from it. And then the final N can also be nurturing. This is a very nurturing thing for us. It can be, it's a way to, nurture ourselves. So that's RAIN. And actually the next slide here, there's, and plus later on in the homework part of it, but there is a video on Stop, which if you want to watch that, although I went over it, but feel free to watch that. It's a quick video. And then there's a video that Tara Brach herself does. It's a long talk, actually, 42-minute talk, but around this, I think it's around the 7-minute mark. she leads the exercise. So you can listen to it there, or I've also got another link later on that you can listen to an actual meditation of it. So stop versus rain. I think stop is really good, to really quick pause in the moment, on the go, stop, do the stop thing. Rain is a little bit more when you have a few more minutes to sit and be quiet and really investigate internally. So try them both as you go through the week. There's also a link here to to the attitudes. I hope you got a chance to listen to some of those, but there's that link again. The two there that I'm calling out are non-striving and acceptance. So the non-striving is all about, remember, we're not striving to fix things here. We're not striving to get to a better place. We're not achieving. It's kind of going against the grain. And we're just trying to accept things as they are. All right. So what happens if we don't interrupt the stress cycle, it can get to feeling like this, where we get addicted to the worry, and the worry become kind of like a vicious cycle. We worry about a situation. We really can't do anything about it, but sometimes the worry feels like we are doing something about it. The worrying helps us feel like we're, I don't know, maybe trying to fix things or problem solve it, but it's really compounding and building on itself. And we worry about the worry, and it sort of gets us a little feeling like this guy in the cartoon where it gets, overloaded. And that's why it's hard to break the cycle. So it's better to break the cycle early on as best you can. So that's why these are practices, and practice them. And even if you find yourself, kind of in a full-blown worry thought pattern, maybe that's the time to use rain. Or maybe that's the time to use what we're going to do next. We'll do a thought meditation. And here, the idea now we're going to get into thinking about our thinking. And we realize that we can't get rid of our thoughts, but we can realize that our mind generates thoughts just like our stomach generates digestive enzymes, or any other organ in the body does its thing. That's what our brain does. It generates thoughts. And so what we're trying to do here is trying to see that thoughts are mental events, and they're not necessarily facts. We have all these many, many thoughts, and we can't even get rid of them. And we're not trying to get rid of them in meditation. But in this meditation, we're going to kind of catch thinking in the act. And we're going to notice thoughts and the patterns of thinking that we have. And we're going to investigate them a little bit. All right. So let's do the meditation. So find a position that's comfortable and easy and balanced, one where you can be relaxed for the next few minutes. This should probably take about, I would say, 7 or 8 minutes or so. Take a couple of deep breaths. On the inhale, you can stretch your spine up a little bit. And on the exhale, you can imagine you're breathing out any tension, softening the body as you settle down into the chair. Do that a couple times. And as you do this, you can have your eyes open or close them, whatever you're most comfortable with. But tune inwards. So let's first set our attitude. So again, remember, a good attitude to have is curious, being open and receptive, accepting, and focus your attention on the in-breath and out-breath. So you might feel it at one of those spots, the nostrils, the windpipe, the chest, the belly. See if you can feel it, really feel it in maybe one of the spots. And just commit to it in a light and friendly way. Feel the breath. Stay focused on the gentle inflow and outflow of your breathing. If you want to use a mental note to help pay attention, like a mantra, or in and out, or rising, falling, whatever helps, that's fine. And just follow the breath for a moment or so in silence. Now, as we progress, it's almost inevitable that we'll forget the breath and find ourselves off thinking about something. Thoughts can be ridiculously subtle. They come up underneath us and carry us away. Before we know it, we've realized we've been fantasizing about something and we're lost in a train of thoughts. What do you default to? How does your mind get hijacked? The point is, there's nothing more normal in the world. As I said, the mind secretes thoughts the way the stomach secretes digestive enzymes. It's part of our natural functioning. As always, with mindfulness, being able to notice when this has happened so we can catch our thoughts in the act. Each time we notice, we wake up. To help with this, you can note to yourselves thinking as you notice a thought. Or even if you notice like it's a planning thought or a worry thought or a, whatever, a memory thought, you can even label it that way. And then you can always go back to feeling the breath. But now we're kind of noticing the thoughts with a little more awareness, right? Try that for a moment. And now we're going to broaden the awareness so that we're kind of using the metaphor of your mind being like a river, and you're standing on the riverbank, watching the water flow by. Imagine your thoughts and your memories, sensations, emotions, whatever arises, as if they're flowing past you. Notice what appears there, but don't engage with it. Don't fish it up, chase it, or elaborate on it. Just let it flow by. Your job right now is not to be making distinctions about which content is useful or relevant. You're not even going to try to stop your mind from wandering. Just let the river keep flowing. There isn't anything you need to or can do about it. Just let it flow on by. This is open monitoring. We're allowing the mind to do what it will. And your job is to simply observe that flow at a distance without engagement or participation. Now, if you have difficulty letting things pass you by, come back to your breath. Imagine your breath sensations as a boulder in the middle of all that flowing water. Rest your attention on that stable, steady object. And when you feel ready, broaden your attention again and go back to noticing thoughts. this point, let's focus again on what thoughts do you notice? What kinds of thoughts are they? Some thoughts do capture our attention. Some thoughts want to pull us along, pull us right down the river. Notice what kinds of thoughts do that. Some thoughts are kind of like very mild and you're hardly aware of them. Kind of innocuous. Some thoughts have a strong emotional component. So just try to watch thoughts come and go. Like leaves on a stream, let them flow on by. Remember noticing maybe being really kind of lost in thought. That's okay. It's kind of the point of this. When you get lost, catching yourself, waking up, watching thoughts again, or coming back to that breath, that boulder in the stream. All right, very good. Let's let go of that imagery and watching thoughts go by. Let's come back to feeling the breath for a couple of cycles. Let's come back to the body sitting here. Feel the feet on the floor, body in the chair. And when you're ready, feel free to open your eyes if they've been closed. Feel free to stretch a little bit and kind of just notice, what was that like this is really quite different than before. What was it like to notice thoughts in this way? And again, feel free to use the chat, or if you want to speak up, if you have any feedback or thoughts about your thinking. What was that like? This part of our practice helps us notice what thoughts, the power of thoughts and how they trigger and how they're related to stress triggers. And there might be a stress trigger, but our thinking kind of like aggravates it or stirs it up or continues the drama of the thought. So what we're trying to do here is be detached a little bit from those thoughts so that we can let them slide on by. Yeah, it's a good observation. My mind is always on the go. Very true. Can't stop it. It's like that river, but we can step back from it. We can be on the riverbank. Thich Nhat Hanh calls it like, it's like we have a TV with hundreds of different channels, which is the state of our TV these days. And there's so many different channels, there's so much chatter and thoughts going on. Even if we pick a particular channel, that can be overwhelming. So, but we can pick and choose a channel that's helpful, that's one that we want to focus on. And if we find that we get lost in that whole drama and it's not something that's very helpful, we can pick a different channel. We have the power to do that. And that's what's kind of cool about it. So this poem kind of says it all. 10,000 flowers in spring, the moon in autumn, a cool breeze in summer, snow in winter. If your mind isn't clouded by unnecessary things, this is the best season of your life. So it's the idea that we can really let go. We can't get rid of our thinking, but what we can do is it's like a snow globe, when you shake it up and the snow is all flurrying around. But eventually, if we're still and we're quiet, it all settles by gravity down to the bottom of the snow globe. We can kind of do that with our thinking. All right, so yeah, it's a good poem. So I know we're kind of getting close to time. I try to think about this as a 50-minute class, so we've got a few minutes left. In the last few minutes, what I want to do is kind of talk a little bit about changing your mindset about stress. And if you get a chance, when I send the slides out, watch this video. It's the whole video is like 14 minutes. If you only have 3 minutes, there's a shorter version on the second link. Some of you may have seen this, but it's a TED Talk by Kelly McGonigal, and she talks about our beliefs about stress. And, you know, we've all been taught that stress is harmful to our health, right? But what they found in this study with 30,000 adults is they found that the people who didn't believe that stress is harmful, who had kind of a more open attitude about it, had a better ability to cope with stress. And it actually translated into a better cardiovascular and health profile. So the idea here is that we can challenge our mindset about how we think about stress and our perspective on stress. And we can actually change our relationship. To do this, we have to be aware of our beliefs about thoughts, and that's where the thoughts come in. They give us the insight, and we have to challenge the thinking that we have by it. So another way to do this is to realize that we have a negativity bias. Our brains are just hardwired this way because this is the way that evolution has helped us survive. Negative experiences are more likely to stick to the mind like Velcro. Positive experiences tend to slide off the brain like Teflon. The second point is that we have neuroplasticity. So the more we focus on one way of thinking, that builds that neural pathway. So if we're focused more on negative things, that's why I wanted you to focus on pleasant events last week, because this week we're going to focus on unpleasant events. We have the power to focus on the more positive things, and we can have the choice, and we can learn to do that. And the more we do that, we actually change the neurons and the neural pathways, and it becomes more of a habit and an actual trait in the brain and in our way of responding to stress. So again, it takes practice. Some ways to do this, I'm going to go through these last few pretty quickly. Gratitude is a great way to do it. So there are lots and lots of benefits to gratitude. Here are some prompts. So this might be part of your practice to kind of like notice things that you're grateful for, positive things. This can help us turn our attention from the negative to the positive. Another quick exercise you can try at the end of the day is jotting down or telling somebody 3 good things that happened. So remembering and focusing on those 3 good things that happened during the day. What they found is when people did this for 2 weeks, it had a lasting effect of up to 6 months of happiness and well-being. So try this one. That's another thing that you can try to kind of turn from the negativity bias. Point being, as William James said, the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. And if you can change your mind, you can change your life. So give that some thought. And as I close up, I'll leave you with the daily practices. Formal practice, so you can try the rain meditation, and then alternate days, the thought meditation. There is a break the worry meditation. I can send you the script on that. It's not a link to an actual audio, but I'll send you the link. The script. Practice the 3-minute breathing space daily if you can. And then for the informal practice, practice stop. And I want you to, on the bottom here, notice how you experience and process unpleasant events. What thoughts pop up? What happens to your emotional state when an unpleasant event happens. Say you're driving in traffic and somebody cuts you off. What thoughts come up? What emotions come up? What do you notice in the body? So that's the informal practice. So that's the homework. There's a couple of readings that I'll send. Thoughts are not facts. Ways you can see your thoughts differently. There's a couple of videos there, or one video actually, and then finally the links. There is a link to the rain meditation. There is a link to a thought meditation and the 3-minute breathing space. And with that, the most probably important quote of them all, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. So thank you. That's it. I'm going to stop the recording. I'll be on for a couple of minutes. If you have any questions, let me know.